Time for business news next, and I'm joined by Stephen Carroll. Good morning, Stephen.
Hey, Joanna.
You're starting out with Greece, where it seems some progress has been made on its bailout standoff.
Greece's finance minister says the country has reached an agreement with its international lenders on a package of reforms in exchange for the next instalment of its bailout loans. The reforms include cuts to pensions, tax rises and reforms of the energy and labour markets. Athens now needs to pass these reforms in its own parliament before a meeting of Eurozone finance ministers on May 22nd. That'll allow the payment of the next tranche of loans in time for Greece to pay €7.5 billion worth of debts that are due in July. Announcing the agreement, Yukos Sakalatos said the way had now been paved for talks on debt relief for Greece.
You're shifting focus to the United States next, where Donald Trump has announced plans for a major overhaul of banks.
The US president says that he's considering breaking up major banks by separating their retail and investment businesses. This change would be a return to banking regulations abolished in 1999 in the United States. Mr. Trump told Bloomberg the White House was looking at a 21st century version of the old rules. Meanwhile, the president used a meeting with local banks to restate his plan to overhaul another set of financial regulations. Catherine Viette reports.
Donald Trump is considering resurrecting banking regulations repealed by Bill Clinton in the late 1990s. He wants to once again separate the activities of consumer and investment banks. Known as the Glass-Steagall Act, it came into effect after the Great Wall Street crash in 1929 and lasted until 1999. A number of economists believe its repeal set the groundwork for the collapse of Lehman Brothers Investment Bank and the financial crisis of 2008. Trump has yet to reveal a more detailed plan, but he's already considering repealing another set of rules known as the Dodd-Frank Law.
That's why in the first 100 days, I have taken action to roll back burdensome regulations that undermine community banks. Especially, I know you're going to be very disappointed at this Dodd-Frank, right? No, it's out of control.
Adopted under Barack Obama after the financial crisis, the Dodd-Frank law regulates the banking sector without going so far as to force institutions to separate their activities. It also includes a consumer protection element with the creation of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Trump has been an outspoken critic of financial regulations enacted in the wake of the Great Recession, saying they've stifled economic growth.
Let's check on what's happening on the markets next for you. European shares back in business after the long weekend for the markets. Shares generally opening up at the start of trading. The online retailer Ocado in London is up over 8% after reports it could be considering a tie-up with Marks and Spencer. Over in Asia, Chinese shares falling in trading today after some disappointing figures on the country's manufacturing sector. That's causing concern about the state of the economy. Meanwhile, the Kospi in Seoul is up. That's been boosted by Samsung, which is continuing to see gains after its impressive quarterly results last week. I look now at some more of today's business headlines for you. Profits of the oil company BP have tripled in the first 3 months of the year. Earnings on an underlying replacement cost basis were $1.5 billion for the period. BP's figures boosted by the jump in oil prices since last year. Shares in the company up around 2% in London. Shares, meanwhile, in the musical instrument maker Yamaha jumped by over 17% in Tokyo after its latest results. Net profits jumped by 43% in the year to the end of March. The company said it was boosted by sales of upright pianos in China and grand pianos in Europe. And authorities in San Francisco have reached an agreement with home rental sites Airbnb and HomeAway to allow them to continue operating in the city. The deal will see the websites share information about rental properties with the city to ensure they've been properly registered. Airbnb had come under fire for reducing the housing supply for San Francisco residents.
And finally from you, Stephen, a French tasty treat that's returned to French ownership.
This is an icon of all French childhoods. It's the Carambar, little caramel flavoured sweet, much loved here, not only by children, it has to be said. Now, 2 years ago, the company that makes the sweets was sold to the food giant Mondelez. As of today, though, it's back in French hands. It was sold to the investment fund Eurozeo. They created a new holding company for the 5 factories that make Carambars. The challenge now for the new firm, though, will be to fight increasing competition from Haribo. A tasty sweet war in the offing, Delano.
Clearly, tasty stuff there. Thank you very much. You're making me hungry now. Stephen Carroll there with the day's business news.